This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
It is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, brought to you by Athletic Greens, your one-stop shopping for 75 high-quality vitamins to help you start your day right. Before we get into the Patriots, Greg, of course, we're both very, very aware of New England sports outside of the Patriots organization. And late last night, Woj bomb, Shams bomb. Ime Udoka might be out as Celtics coach. He might resign, according to some. Celtics might actually suspend him for the full season for an inappropriate relationship inside of the Celtics organization. Just your thoughts on that story, Greg.
Well, Nick, this is sort of your realm. Why don't you go first, and then I'll follow, because I'm sure you have thoughts.
All right. Well, for the non-basketball side, let me just say this. We are seeing the very worst of Twitter. And I blame Adrian Wojnarowski for some of that. Look, Woj is great at what he does. He's one of the best in the business. But his first tweet last night about this story was so vague, it led to reckless speculation. And I thought it was an example of the media in 2022 trying to be first. Trying to be the first one to get something out there, some kind of story. I have to be cryptic about it. And it led a bunch of people on Twitter to just be reckless and irresponsible. And that has continued today. Allison Feaster, who is a member of this Celtics organization, her name was thrown out there as, maybe it was her who Ime was with. Mark Spears came out of ESPN today and said it was not Allison Feaster. This is to clear her name. I would just remind people that Allison Feaster is married with children. And so that kind of reckless speculation on Twitter, it's just nonsense. And people, you're just witnessing the very worst of it. That's the first thing. Yeah. Second thing is, here's one point that a lot of people are missing about the punishment. I see a lot of reaction. There's actually two things about this. A year suspension for an affair that was consensual. Three parts of this. I'll keep adding parts. The first part is we have no idea what the details are. Like, how can we judge the punishment when we don't know what, the details are of the violation of the policy and the organizational guidelines? We have no idea. And I'm not going to recklessly speculate like people on Twitter. There are a lot of possibilities as to what might have happened and why this is a full year-long suspension. We don't know those details. Secondly, I will look at this and say the Celtics have to look at this as an organization and as a company. You have to protect yourself. And if you do not react swiftly and you do not react harshly enough, here's what happens. You set the precedent for power dynamics to not matter within your organization. So if there's another relationship down the road between two people, and it happens to be between people at different power levels within the franchise, you are setting a dangerous precedent if you give Ime Udoka a slap on the wrist. You have to make a statement as a franchise, as a corporation, as an organization, that we are not going to allow power dynamics to affect relationships and have relationships inside of this franchise. It's not going to happen. Consensual, absolutely. Not every single, relationship started within a business that has power structure to it, ends in catastrophe. As a manager myself, I would suggest not to get into a relationship with somebody who might be above or below you in the business that you work at. But I've seen it happen. Realistically, I've seen it happen, and I've seen it work. So I don't want to say that, the idea of power structure eliminates all consent. I don't agree with that notion. That is not true. But the Celtics have to look at this and say, hey, man, what happens if the next head coach happens to, be attracted to a female within the organization and they use their power and influence to strike up a relationship with that person? We already put the precedent on the books on how we handled Ime Udoka. So they have to think about that. And so I think that's why you see the talk of a year-long suspension. And again, power dynamics do play a role, and it depends on all of the details that we don't have, how this relationship came about, who actually approached who, a lot of other things, again, that I don't want to go down the road of. But this is a lot more convoluted and detailed than, just two human beings and two adults consenting.
Yep. A couple thoughts that I have, and again, the operative word is we don't really have any details, and quite frankly, I really hope we don't get details, because everybody doesn't need to know everything. Even in this day and age of sports, when it comes to, people's private lives and like you said, some people are already being dragged into this who are married, who have kids, and it's just unfortunate. A couple of thoughts that I have. Number one, if the Celtics are indeed taking a stand about what's going on within their organization, I applaud them. I think that there are not a lot of organizations in sports that would, when it comes to a head coach who went to the NBA Finals last year in his first year, would say, this is the way our organization is run. No one is above the law in our organization. And for too many years, I've been involved in professional sports for, 25 years. And probably my biggest complaint about professional sports is how it's misogynistic and it's a boys' club, and players, coaches, executives, they get away with whatever they want without repercussions. And there can be far-reaching effects. And if the Celtics are indeed taking a stand, I applaud them for it. I think this also has, if the NBA has been one of the best leagues at increasing roles for women in all sorts of levels, coaching, executives, team, baseball's gotten there, football's starting to get there. I think this is a direct result of that you're seeing, that women rightfully have power within organizations, that just because they didn't play the sport at a professional level or what have you, hasn't held them down. And, if that is going to be the case, that it's not just lip service, then you have to enforce rules like this so that there is not an imbalance of power going on. And as I have twins, boy, girl, I have a daughter who's very athletic. I coach a lot of women in softball and basketball and in other sports, and I am all for women getting more opportunities. And I one of the things I always tell them, and I always use examples of people of getting head coaching jobs or general managers or what have you, first female vice president of the United States. I always take a minute and talk to them and reinforce to them, like, there's nothing that you can't do anymore. There is no ceiling for you. And I think enforcing dynamics like this is important. And my final thought is, look, we had Alex Cora suspended for a year. We had Bruce Cassidy fired. Now we have Ime Udoka. Part of me is like, what's next? I mean, Bill's really the last one standing, the last one unscathed. I mean, that's just, I'm not saying there's anything imminent. That's just the thought I had going through my head. And I do just want to mention, and maybe this illustrates the changing in times in sports. But look, not too long ago, Bill Belichick was testified in a divorce proceedings that had to do with something that happened while he was with the Giants. And in fact, it's weird that just the other day I was talking to someone about Bill Belichick and about his ability to go someplace else. And they told me that in their mind, it would be very hard for them to see Bill ever going back to the Giants because of what happened back then and how that impacted the Maras. And so, all these dynamics go on. And in the past, they not condoned, but people look the other way. There's a changing power dynamic, and that's, in my mind, a direct result to women rightfully ascending in professional sports.
Last thing, I just want to touch on the basketball side of this. I feel terrible for the guys. When you're on a team that is, in some people's eyes, at least the second best team in the Eastern Conference behind Milwaukee. Some would argue they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think they're not as good as Milwaukee when Milwaukee's healthy. But, they had a chance, and they still have a chance. Look, they still have a chance at the finals, right? They still have a chance to win a championship this year. But in the last month, you've lost Gallinari. You've lost Rob Williams at least for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And with his history, who knows what's going to happen with that. And now your head coach is gone, at least for a year, if not forever, if he resigns. That's less than ideal when you're about to start training camp and when you're about to start the preseason. So it'd be a heck of a story if these guys could overcome.
Yeah, by the way, I just wanted to mention, that interview I think Wick gave with the Boston Globe not too long ago where he completely downplayed expectations for this team. It now looks a lot different in context. He knew something was coming, that they were, this has been in the works for a while, because I just didn't understand. I'm like, bro, you were just in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors and you almost won. And now you're just some team in the East. Like, come on. So I don't know. It just looks different in hindsight.
Yeah, he's calling him overrated publicly, which was a little weird, and now it does make a little bit more sense. But I just feel bad for the guys. I feel bad for Tatum. I feel bad for Jaylen Brown. Of course, you had the Jaylen Brown, Kevin Durant stuff that was thrown out there. There's just been, too much drama, and a lot of it out of the hands, pretty much all of it out of the hands of the guys that are actually going to be on the floor playing. So I do feel terrible for the guys that are actually going to play basketball this season. All right, let's jump to the Patriots. The Ravens are coming to Foxborough. First and foremost, Greg, I think the Patriots should expect a very motivated, a very upset, and dare I say pissed Baltimore Ravens after crumbling in the second half against Tua and the Dolphins last week.
Yeah, without question. I think that if you're the Patriots and, this is a little early for them to be firing on all cylinders, you were hoping to get a 2-0 sort of fat, overweight Ravens team feeling good about themselves coming in here to Foxborough, and you might be able to, get the jump on them and take them by surprise. But after what happened in the fourth quarter last week in Miami, when I think they gave up 28 points to lose in the fourth quarter, that's gone. The Ravens will be very grumpy this week. That's the worst kind of Ravens team that you want to see. So that's a tough draw for the Patriots. But just, in general about the Ravens, I mean, they're good. We'll get into the particulars on offense and defense, but just in general, watching some of their film, they're watching their two games. They beat the Jets and they lost to the Dolphins. One thing that stood out is, they've really just put together two good halves in both games. They were kind of slow coming out of the gates against the Jets, especially offensively. And then they ended up winning comfortably. It been mostly, end of the second quarter through the end of the game. Basically, it was like end of the second quarter and third quarter. And then against the Dolphins, they were awesome in the first half and not so great in the second half. And so, that's sort of, it goes with the MO that we've seen with the Ravens over the years. They've never quite put it all together for 60 minutes very often. You can count on them going into a lull if they're up big or getting off to a slow start. So the Patriots need to take advantage of that, because this is not – there are some flaws on this team, and it would be really nice. I think we saw last week against the Steelers that the Patriots playing with a lead is the formula this year with this team, the way it's constructed at this point, and that becomes more important against a team like the Ravens.
Before we get to the on-the-field stuff with Lamar Jackson, we're going to break that down. Belichick said something very interesting this week. He was talking about Lamar, and then he kind of just threw his contract status out there in passing. Why do you think Bill Belichick did that, Greg?
It's chess and checkers. I'm telling you. I think I've never heard a comment like that from Bill. Let's just put it on the list of stuff he has said this year that you never, ever thought you'd hear Bill Belichick say. I think 100%. I think that was a calculated shot at the Ravens to drive up Lamar's price tag and make his negotiations even worse. Because remember, Lamar represents himself. Him and his mom represent themselves. That is definitely going to get back to Lamar. That is definitely going to inflate him. That he's going to be like, man, Bill Belichick said, I should get whatever I'm worth. And, look at where Deshaun is. And it's back to the whole, nope, I want it $50 million guaranteed. Like, it is, if I'm the Ravens, and I know those guys pretty well, I'm freaking pissed. And part of me wants to go look and see what are the tampering rules about another player in his contract, because I think that was calculated to drive up the price, to throw a wrench even more into the negotiations between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, because Bill looks at it and it's just like, yeah, I need to get that guy out of the conference. And I think it was completely calculated to screw with the Ravens.
I agree with you. It's a weird situation, this contract negotiation between Jackson and the team. You mentioned the representation. He represents himself. His mom helps as well. He's got kind of a circle of people that he trusts. No professional agency is representing him in this thing, which, becomes kind of arbitration when you're representing yourself, because the team is telling you what they don't like about you, why they don't want to pay you this much money, and you're fighting for yourself. It's a very weird situation. And some of the stuff that's come out, the fact that Lamar didn't really talk to the team much this offseason. The team said, well, we're trying. And then there was the leak from a couple of weeks ago saying he turned down that, contract for hundreds of millions. And Lamar was asked about it, and he smartly said, oh, what was the guarantee? What was it? Was it 200 plus million guaranteed? Of course it wasn't. It was 133 million guaranteed. And what Lamar's looking at is Deshaun Watson. Look, the Browns screwed it up for everybody else. If a quarterback that has won an MVP like Lamar has, he can go to the Ravens and say, the Browns paid Deshaun Watson $250 million guaranteed. Has he ever won an MVP? Does he have 20 plus sexual assault allegations hovering over his head? Oh, that answer is no. And the second answer is no. Okay, good. So you have to give me at least $251 million guaranteed on my next contract. That's what's going on. Let's talk about Lamar on the field, Greg. Why has he been so good this year?
Well, a few different reasons. Number one, I just think it's natural progression. I think that Lamar Jackson every year has gotten a little bit better. And really, it's been a case of, can he stay healthy? Can he avoid COVID? That sort of thing. I mean, he's missed 19 games the past 2 seasons. I think he missed 14 or 15 last year. And that's been an issue, and it's an issue the way that he plays, and he still runs. But I got to tell you, watching the film, this is the best version of Lamar Jackson I have ever seen. He is completely in control in the pocket. He is seeing the field bigger and better than ever before. He is now he had a slant for a touchdown to Bateman against Xavier Howard of the Dolphins, who just gave the Patriots all sorts of fits. Of course, the Devontae Parker interception in the end zone, but they just ran a backside slant, a little bit of play action backside slant, something that the Patriots normally do. They don't really do it as much anymore. And Lamar Jackson completely moved the safety that was supposed to help Howard in the middle of the field, moved him with his eyes, and then came back, threw a rifle, and Bateman was gone. He is just... He does a lot of checks at the line, running and throwing in terms of, getting them into good plays. That's not unusual. He's always sort of done some of that going back to college. He does even more now. He is so calm now and doesn't panic and goes to his second and third progressions much better than he used to. And he is just, and here's the other thing that I think that makes the Ravens dangerous on offense. Not only has Lamar Jackson gotten better, I think they've gotten a little bit better everywhere. Like their offensive line, I still don't love it, but it's better than it was last year. And they don't even have we'll see if Ronnie Stanley's able to start this week. He's been practicing more and more. I would tend to doubt it. Maybe we'll see, but they've had issues at left tackle. They had Juwan James. He's hurt. Now they have this guy, Mackay, there, who's really a guard, who's not any good. But the line has gotten a little bit better, and the receivers are much better. I mean, if Duvernay is dealing with a concussion, but Bateman's a legitimate number one. You have Denard Robinson from the he's tremendous. I will say this, though. On film, sometimes he runs the wrong routes. He really does. There are times where just like there was one route where Mark Andrews, they were supposed to run 2 slants going over the top, and Andrews was supposed to run a drag underneath, and Andrews stopped running and went the other way because no one was running the route right. And you see that from time to time with the Ravens, and that's one of their flaws, that they're not the most disciplined group, but Lamar is he's so fast. His arm, he flicks it like 60 yards without even moving his feet. Like he's just, he is Michael Vick, but completely elevated and polished game. He is incredible at this point, and he is going to be a handful to defend this weekend.
He's been a little bit polarizing over the past couple of years. I don't think there's one player that I have battled people on radio more than I've battled people about Lamar Jackson when I was in Virginia, and when I was doing ESPN national radio. I've always been of the belief that he needs to get better from the pocket. I think that's been a fair criticism of his. I think when you take away the Ravens' run game, he was not as productive standing in the pocket and delivering throws consistently, especially in tight windows. But I also believe that some of that was on Greg Roman and his stubbornness to stick with the same system. Some of that was with the lack of talent surrounding Lamar Jackson at wide receiver specifically. And some of it was offensive line. He should never have taken all of the blame. But I do think he needed to take steps and progress when it comes to be a pocket passer. And so far, it looks like this year he has done that. And if he has added that element of the game to his quarterback play, then like you said, Greg, he's going to be tremendously difficult to slow down. And the one thing I would say, what is critical, and I want your thoughts on this, he's not good against pressure. His numbers are awful when he gets pressured, but there's a caveat to that. You do not want to blitz to create the pressure, because against the blitz, he will destroy you. So I think a major part of this football game on Sunday, Greg, is for the Patriots to get pressure on Lamar without having to blitz. If they can get pressure with their defensive line, this is a big game for Judon. If they can get pressure on him without blitzing, I think you can somewhat limit the damage.
Yeah, I think that, in watching the two teams, the Jets and the Dolphins, who defended Lamar earlier, and look, Lamar isn't going off the entire game. There's a lot of drives where they go 3 or 5 plays and they just stall out. And to me, the most effective way against Lamar is you need about 5 athletic guys within the line of scrimmage, and you just need to keep him in you got to keep him in the pocket, and you cannot rush past him. I was just watching the Raiders game last week, against Kyler Murray, and for the most part, Max Crosby is he's just absurdly good. He's stupid good. But on it was Chandler Jones, who's been awful for the Raiders, and on a crucial play, he ran right by. It was when Kyler Murray ran around the 2-point conversion where he ran around for 90 yards and scored the touchdown. Sorry, not that play. There was another play like that, and Chandler Jones ran by Kyler Murray and just gave him an avenue to run. You can't do that. You got to just stay in your lanes, and you got to get after him. And you can get Lamar Jackson. You just got to close down the pocket and make him feel like he's suffocating. And that to me, that's a big key. You got to be dynamic in the front, and we'll see if the Patriots have enough of those guys. Taking out, because they like a lot of big bodies guys. Devon Godchow, Carl Davis, Daniel Ekulale is off suspension. Barmore, we'll see if this is a Barmore game. I do think he has that athletic ability that I would like him out there a lot, but you got to close that pocket against him.
When we look at the, defensively attacking Lamar in this Ravens offense, how big is the Duggar injury if he's going to miss this game?
Huge. I mean, it's immense. When you look at the Patriots defense and you're like, all right, who's the one guy on this defense that if he's the spy on Lamar Jackson, and a lot of teams, what they do is they'll start off in 2 shell, and the Patriots do this all the time. Then they'll rotate to 1 single high safety, and they'll drop down the other safety, normally in a robber/lurker type of thing, where it's like, all right, he's gonna sink and double somebody specific, like say Mark Andrews in the middle of the field. But what a lot of teams do against the Ravens is they will drop that safety down, and basically he'll come down and rotate down to be a linebacker, to be a spy against Lamar Jackson. And to me, in my mind, Kyle Duggar, with his speed, his explosive ability, his athletic ability overall, he's the one guy where, say in practice, I would have Kyle Duggar playing Lamar Jackson in practice, because he's as close to that type of athlete that the Patriots have. He was on the practice field yesterday. So was Jacoby Myers. Both did not participate. They just went out for stretching, maybe to test what they have. Both are on the field today. This is Thursday. We'll have to wait for the practice report, but that's That's good because I don't know if they can win this game and shut down Lamar Jackson without a somewhat healthy Kyle Duggar.
You just go back to the Miami game and, you look at, yes, he made a big mistake on the Jalen Waddle touchdown, but you go back to Duggar's ability in the open field to tackle Tyreek Hill going downhill. And he has that capability. And so he's the guy on that defense that can track down great athletes and make open field tackles. So I agree with you. If Duggar's not out there, that's going to make the Patriots defensive job that much more difficult. So when you look at, before we get to some of the Ravens issues that they might have that you see, the Patriots looking at this Ravens defense, Greg, and Mac Jones looking at this Ravens defense, what do you think they have to do against Baltimore to be consistently successful on Sunday in Foxborough?
I think they got to throw the ball. And look, it's dangerous because, they do have some good players on that defense. Marcus Peters, when he's engaged, is good. He was not good against the Dolphins. He was part of the reason why they gave up all those points. Marlon Humphrey is back this year, one of the best in the league, got paid in the offseason. And then Damarian Williams is a rookie. He's playing slot cornerback. And their safeties are they're pretty good. Chuck Clark is pretty good. And of course, Marcus Williams is tremendous at free safety. And so on paper, you say, I don't want to throw against those guys. But I just think the Ravens are too good on the interior with, Matabuke and old man Calais Campbell is still in there, and Pierce and, Michael Pierce. They're tough to run against. I do not love the Ravens linebackers at all. Bynes and Queen are not off to a good start this year. But, if they think they're going to slog it out against this team, I don't think that's the case. And look, even if you have to look at the Ravens and Lamar Jackson sort of the way you looked at Patrick Mahomes a few years ago with the Chiefs. You might be able to hold them down for a quarter and a half, something like that. But at some point, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are going to figure things out. They're going to get hot, and they're going to go on a run. And they're going to score at least, even if the Patriots play their best defense, they're going to score into the mid-20s. They're going to score at least 24 points. So the Patriots have to figure out how they're going to score 24 points after averaging 12 in the first two games. And to me, that ain't going to come grinding it out, running the ball, dinking and dunking. They're gonna have to open things up in the passing game and try to get the Ravens to play undisciplined, which they will. And this is where sort of coordination and play calling come into play, where you trick these guys into thinking that they're going to see something, and then they get something else, and then you pop a big play. But the plays that Mac Jones left on the field against the Steelers, that can't happen this week. They got to capitalize on everything this week to make sure that they keep pace with the Ravens.
So the Ravens issues, you don't like the linebackers, discipline, lack of discipline. They might not, they might get lost in the shuffle certain times and be misled by certain looks and all of that stuff. Also, anything else with this Ravens team that you would say is susceptible for the Patriots to kind of attack on Sunday, Greg? Anything else that pops out at you?
As far as who? Say that again.
The Ravens, issues with the Ravens, any other weaknesses aside from linebacker and, lack of discipline and some of that stuff?
The offensive line. The offensive line. I mean, I think they're going to have to dominate up front. And, the big thing is, again, Matthew Judon is going to have to be dominating. I mean, I have a lot of confidence right now in the Patriots defense that they're going to execute and probably keep things within reasons. There are still some play calls with Steve Belichick that I'm just like, what was that? I mean, but, they haven't gotten exposed because, it was Tua week one in a new coach, and they really didn't, start to click and figure things out until the fourth quarter against the Ravens. Like I think I said off the Dolphins thing, I'm glad off the Dolphins pod, I'm glad they got the Dolphins when they did, because they're going to start clicking pretty soon, because there's a lot there on that offense, talent and scheme-wise, and look what happened in the fourth quarter. And then you got Mitch Trubisky. This is an entirely different challenge altogether, And but I do like a lot of what the Patriots are doing, specifically Jonathan Jones. I'm hoping he gets a lot of Bateman and shut him down, because I think Jonathan Jones has been awesome to this point. And I would just let Lamar Jackson beat you. Shut down Andrews, shut down Bateman, and then let Lamar Jackson beat you with everybody else. He might be able to, and just with his own legs and his own talent, but that's the way I think you got to approach this game.
All right, we got more to keep it rolling here in a minute, but first, Greg's going to tell you about Athletic Greens.
I started taking AG1 because I wanted to make sure I was getting all the vitamins and nutritional supplements I needed in one place. Now I've been on it for going on 3 months, and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy, kind of has a mild tropical taste, a little minty, and I actually look forward to it each morning. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals, whole food-sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things that you want. And I'm telling you, it's true. As soon as I take it, it feels like I have like an energy boost. The stuff feels good, and it does great things for your body. I take it first thing in the morning. It's now part of my morning routine, and I'd be lost without it. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Bedard. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Bedard to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
A year of vitamin D and 5 free travel packets. Not too bad of a deal. Again, it's Bedard is what you want to pay attention to with that code with Athletic Greens. Our friends who are doing some great work. All right, I got really just 2 questions for you, Greg, about the Patriots heading into the weekend. The 2 things that stick out at me, and really it's going to be about the offense. First of all, what are they doing with the tight ends? Will we saw a ton of 12 personnel week 1. We didn't see really much of it week 2. What's the plan? Is this, we know it used to be with McDaniel's game specific. I know you said earlier this week that, hey, don't expect a ton from Jonnu Smith, but will the Patriots make a concerted effort consistently to get Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith involved, because they're paying them a ton of money, and because I think, dare I say, it could actually help their offense a little bit?
Yeah, I think Hunter. Yes, I think there will be a Hunter game at some point. It's just, look, watching these guys game plan and how they go about things, I think it's very simplistic. It's like, it's basically like, offense for dummies, where it's like, all right, what's our advantage this week? And they thought last week, they're like, well, we want to get the Steelers in nickel because we'll be able to run the ball a little bit better. So how are we going to do that? And all right, well, we're going to go 11 personnel. We don't want to use the 2 tight ends. That's too predictable. They'll have their base. So what are we going to do? We're going to put Lil Jordan Humphrey out there, and they're going to react with nickel. But really, that's sort of like 12 personnel for us. Okay, fine, great. That's. But you don't need to freaking do it like 85% of the time in the game. Like there are other ways to do it and to be calculated and be like, all right, well, we're going to save this in our back pocket for a certain point in the game. Instead, it's just like, they used 2 personnel packages in the first game, 12 and 11. Then this game, it was all 11 personnel. And yes, they did. I will give them credit. They mixed and matched the receivers a little bit better. So that was good for the most part. But seriously, it's very rudimentary what they're doing offensively. I think Mac realizes it. I think this is some of Mac's frustrations, and I think he's not playing with a lot of confidence in the scheme still. But I do think I'm hopeful. I mean, I keep saying it. I mean, every time they get in the red zone, they've now been in the red zone 4 times, and I don't even think they've looked Hunter Henry's way once. Do you want the Ravens? Do you want to use 12 personnel in this game? Do you want the Ravens in base? No, I think I want them in nickel. I think I want the rookie on the field. So, we'll see how the Patriots deal with that. It could be they could go with a fast group this game. I think they think they think they're being really smart and sneaky to being like, oh, well, look, now we're going to use a speed group with 11 personnel. Last game, it was sort of like big nickel, but for offense. We used a big 11 personnel. And this week, we're going to use a small 11 personnel. It's just, they look like an offense that's being coordinated by a bunch of defensive guys, and that they think this is the way to go. And maybe it is, but there's no question they have to get the tight ends going. They have to get Hunter Henry going. They need a threat in the middle of the field, help open up the edges, because they need to make big plays, and you got to set that up. Throw it down the middle of the field, get it to Hunter Henry, especially in the red zone, and let's go.
Does Kendrick Bourne start to play more and Devontae Parker start to play less this weekend?
I would love to say yes, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I think that Devontae Parker is Matty P's guy, that he found him, as we heard from Mac Rowe, and I think he is going to keep – I bet you instead of saying, oh, let's do more of this, I think they're thinking, all right, well, let's dial a few more things up for Devontae Parker, because he is a mismatch and he can do X, Y, and Z. I don't have a lot of confidence in that at this point.
Hopefully you're wrong. I mean, as far as look, if you're going to play Parker, hopefully he actually shows up and makes plays. And maybe, it's only been 2 games. Maybe he can turn this thing around. He has shown in the past that he's a good, legit NFL wide receiver. He had a good, camp, at least early on in the camp. And, if they stick with Parker, hopefully he can make some plays. If not, then we're going to get to the point where it's just, irresponsible by the coaching staff to not replace him by Kendrick Bourne. Some good matchups this week, Greg. Before we get to our pick for this game coming up on Sunday between the Patriots and the Ravens, some really good matchups, especially, when you look at the in-division matchup, right? We've got the Bills and the Dolphins. How do you feel about that one? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think this is a true test of where the Dolphins are. I mean, again, I think it's a little early for them. I mean, this is just the 3rd game of Mike McDaniel as a head coach in the league, and they put in a new offense and all that. And look, I think the Dolphins are a really good story. I think they're one of these sort of flash in the pan early in the story, sort of like, Brian Daboll's 2-0 with the Giants. Does anybody think the Giants are good? No, they're horrible, and they're not going to be good this year. They just got off to a good start. Just like, conversely, the Raiders are 0-2, but if they made one more play in each game, they're 2-0. So that's just the way, football is. I think the Dolphins have been a little bit fortunate. The Patriots weren't ready in the opener. The Ravens fell asleep. I don't think that'll happen again. And I just don't. One quarter of really good offensive football from Tua and the Dolphins is fool's gold to me. I need to see it over the course of a whole game. And I think the Bills are just, they're unbelievable. This is the closest to the 2007 Patriots team that I've ever seen, in terms of, and I didn't cover that team from afar, watching it from afar, sort of like I am with the Bills right now, watching at the ease on how they move the ball, and that you just think like they can do whatever they want. Any down, any distance, they can score a touchdown. They can get a first down. If it's 3rd and 12, Josh Allen scrambles for 13 yards. Like this is the closest I've ever seen where I think the only person who stops, or the only team that stops the Bills, is themselves, which might ultimately end up happening. But to this point, I think the Bills are a juggernaut, and I think they bring a dose of reality to the Dolphins in South Florida.
That is high praise. The one thing I will say about the Bills is they're very banged up in the secondary. So I don't know how that's going to wreak havoc on their defense. They've got 3 or 4 guys, important guys. Hyde is banged up. Poyer's banged up. So you got the White thing going on. And, so there's a lot of Dane Jackson, obviously, took that awful hit, and thankfully he's okay and got released from the hospital. But they are dealing with some stuff in that secondary. But I tend to agree with you anyway, Greg. I do think the Bills are the much better football team. And I tweeted something similar to what you just said after the Dolphins game on Sunday. Look, I give Tua all the credit in the world. They had a great second half, and Waddle and Hill went absolutely off. But I'm not going to erase my memory of the last 2 years of what Tua has looked like. I'm not going to erase week 1 the way Tua looked like with Waddle and Hill against the Patriots. So I need to see Tua do it consistently, and I need to see him have a very strong season before I stand up and say, okay, he's QB1. He's a legit franchise quarterback. I need to see more than just one half. And, the Tua stands last weekend immediately jumped to Twitter and got their thumbs busy because he had an incredible second half. Like, every time the guy completes a pass over 50 yards, there's 1,000 videos. Oh, I thought he couldn't throw the ball deep. Everybody just calm the hell down. It's one half of football. Packers-Bucs is another interesting matchup, Greg.
Yeah, and we as Patriots observers see the Packers next week, so we have a vested interest in this. I haven't seen really much of either team. To me, this is Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. Will go down as two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history facing off for the final time. Too bad it's not at Lambeau, but we get Belichick versus Rodgers for the final time at Lambeau next week. And it's just sentimental to me. Like, I'm just going to sit back and be a fan, watch two guys that I've covered for the final time. This is just another sign of how freaking old I'm getting. But I just love it. I love watching these two guys. I thank them for the many years that they've entertained us. And I just want to be a fan and watch a great show.
Brady in the offense has not been spectacular. Obviously last week he's had issues with the Saints since he's been a Buck. It's really weird. He just doesn't play well against that team. Mike Evans is going to be out because of his suspension because he wanted to be a knucklehead last week. So, there's a lot of injuries to the Bucs wide receivers. They had to go out and sign Cole Beasley this week because they're very thin. So I wonder what that's going to look like. Defensively, the Bucs are very, very good. They're just very good. The Packers, Rodgers, had a bad start week one, was much better last week. He got Lazard back. Lazard's a little dinged up again. Bakhtiari is still not playing with that knee. He's been out for more than a year now, which I don't know what's going on with that. Tore his ACL and stuff, but he's been out for a long, long time. He's not been able to figure that knee out. So Rodgers has had a little bit of an inconsistent, bumpy ride because he's, he's supposed to depend on young receivers, but he really, I don't think is going to do that. I think he's going to be looking at Cobb and Lazard and Tunyon all year long. So it'll be interesting. Aaron Jones had a number of touches last week. He only had 8 touches in week one. Matt LaFleur came out and apologized for that because it's inexcusable. They can run the football. Jones is good. He's a dynamic receiver, and they expect that Packers defense to be better. Whether or not it's going to be, we'll have to wait and see. Should be an interesting game. And the last one we want to talk about is Sunday Night Football. Niners, Broncos, Russell Wilson, and of course now, Jimmy G.
Jimmy G. Yeah, I again, when I cover the Patriots, I don't have a lot of time to watch other games and outside Patriots film and then their upcoming opponent. And I also make it a point to watch Raiders film because of McDaniels and his offense and seeing what they're doing. So I haven't seen a ton of these guys, and plus Jimmy just came off the bench. The big thing for me in the Broncos stuff that I've seen, I just don't know how good Russell Wilson is anymore as far as his legs. His arm, he could still sling it. But he at times he thinks he can escape things. He doesn't have the gear anymore to escape the pocket or get to the edge. And, can he still be Russell Wilson? Can he still be good enough as, Russell Wilson from the pocket? Is that the same as Russell Wilson, previous like MVP candidate? I just don't think it is. I think he needs all parts of his game firing. And I think at his age, with all the hits that he's taken behind that Seahawks line over the years, I don't think he's the same guy. And I am very interested to see how the 49ers cook with a full week of Jimmy G and a Jimmy G game plan this week. Cause I think he's the better quarterback for this team if he stays healthy. And I think we'll see it this week.
I've talked so much about the Niners, I'll stay away from it because I talk a ton about them out here in Sacramento. But I will say about Denver, 2 things. The first thing about Wilson, I agree with you. He doesn't have the same athletic impact he used to have. And I found it fascinating. Before week 1, that Monday Night Football game, when he went back to Seattle, there was a long story written about the relationship of Wilson and Carroll and what went wrong in Seattle for Wilson. And one of the major points of that article were people in the Seahawks organization saying he is not the same athlete. He cannot, just like you just said, Greg, he cannot escape pressure like he used to. He cannot make plays with his legs like he used to. He is slowing down. It started a couple of years ago. It's continuing to get worse. He's not going to be the same guy. I found that telling, and so far it's been the absolute truth if you've watched him play. The other part is Nathaniel Hackett has been way out of his league the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
And it got to the point last week that the home crowd was literally counting down the play clock. So the offense knew when they had to snap the football because, I talked to Mark Schlereth this week on my show, and he works in Denver now along with doing the Fox games on Sundays. And Schlereth said it's just the operation. Like it's the operation of a first-time head coach. And he said, you can tell there's confusion on the sidelines. There's confusion on the field. Plays are getting in late. There's no feel for the rhythm of the game and when to get those plays in and how you've got to operate your offense. And, because plays are getting, thrown out there so late to Wilson, the offense is struggling to set up in time. They look confused. It's all just really panicky right now in Denver. And it starts with the head coach who doesn't really know how to handle the game right now. And so that'll be interesting to watch if Hackett can figure it out. Okay, the Ravens in Foxborough on Sunday. They are a 3-point favorite, Greg Bedard.
Okay, so I am going with the Ravens will not reach their average because the Patriots will play good, sound defense as much as they can. But still too much for the Patriots offense. So I am going Ravens 27, Patriots 17. A little bit better on offense. I think they make baby steps every week. It's still not good enough. But I do think the Patriots know the secret sauce for holding down Lamar. They beat them last year in the rain, or was it 2 years ago? Cam Newton in the rain. Don't ask Ravens people about that game. They pretty much put it all in the center who could not snap the ball back to Lamar in that game and a few key fumbles in that game. But still, the Patriots know how to make this a 60-minute game with the Ravens. I just think the Ravens are too talented and the Patriots just aren't there offensively yet.
One of these days I'm just going to say the pick first so people don't think I'm jumping on your bandwagon.
There you go.
It's so damn ridiculous how every week we go in and we're so close in our predictions. It's ridiculous. So I'm thinking 24-17 Ravens. I do think they cover. And really pretty much what Greg just said. I just think the Ravens are more explosive offensively than the Patriots right now. And, one or two big plays, and that's, you put up 10 points off of one or two big plays and it changes the game. And I just think, Lamar's playing better football. I do think the Patriots will limit them, especially early on. I think they'll play incredibly conservative defensively and just, force Lamar to make the simple plays like they do with Mahomes and hope that his legs don't impact the game as much as they usually can. But I do think, 24-17, I got Ravens by a touchdown and they cover. BSJ member question of the day. Don't forget about their annual plan, $39.99. Get all the best coverage of all the Boston sports. And of course, John Corrales, I'm sure, is going to be hammering this Ime Udoka story for the next couple of weeks. BSJ member question of the day, Greg, you told me you would find one. Did you find one? And if you did, what was it?
So Two Man Under wrote something, and it's not really a question, but it's a good discussion point. He said, let's say Mac turns out to be a Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins. This is in response to my breakdown column where, I took Mac to task for the way he played, and I broke down 8 different plays. In a 15-year career, maybe he'll have one MVP-type season. In this day and age, that's not nearly enough. Either you get a more athletic quarterback or get him Tua-like weapons. This middle-of-the-road BS is just sitting by the dock of the bay wasting time. Look, I think some of his points are valid, but I think Mac – this is the bottom line. I think Mac is a good enough quarterback with development, and he's not there yet. But in time, he will be a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl on an annual basis. That is good enough. As long as he's not getting a contract that is top of the market, if he takes more of a Brady-like deal. But here's the thing. Bill's got to quit screwing around with the way he constructs rosters. This is not 1992 anymore. And he's got to drop the special teams bullcrap because no one even punts anymore. The Bills don't even punt. That's what you want to get to. Stop worrying about covering punts and kicks. And how about this? Don't punt. build up your offense. So they got to get more dynamic. They need more dynamic playmakers. They need more athletic tight ends. They need a better pass catching running back. They need more dynamic receivers. Maybe Tyquan Thornton is the first step in that. Maybe Matt Groh talking about we need to get faster, and his press conference was like, you need to get faster, you go get a fast guy. And Tyquan Thornton was the fastest guy in the draft. Maybe that's a signal that they're finally doing something like that. But yes, Mac Jones is good enough. Draft better offensive linemen, get more weapons, and go that route. Get more athletic. Stop thinking about special teams and start thinking about offense, because that's where the game has turned, and Bill's got to change with the times.
I agree. Ravens coming up on Sunday in Foxborough. Should be an interesting game to watch. We'll have plenty of talk about next week. Until then, be good, be safe, be healthy. He's Greg, I'm Nick. It's the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens.